all the way from Fortune Hotel.
Yes, it's great to have you this afternoon. What's in store for the Dominican public?
Well, we know today is Friday, and of course, the Fortune Hotel, in collaboration with the Dominica Water Sport Association, will be having our Dive Fest happy hour this evening on the boardwalk from 7 p.m. until 12 a.m. So you can feel free to join us for Dive Fest happy hour, and of course with the big band, the Fanatic Band. So that's something you don't want to miss. For those of you who are not sure what you're doing today, Friday, you just come down to the Fortune Hotel for Dive Fest happy hour.
All right, that sounds excellent.
Yes. And the time again is 7 p.m. until 12 a.m. And of course, we're going to have our barbecue buffet, which we have every Friday. So it's all happening at the Fortune Hotel today.
Oh, great.
And there's an entrance fee of only EC $20 gets you in.
All right, so $20 will get you in from 7 p.m. tonight until 12.
And not forgetting our partners, Kabuli Bear and Digicel are our partners for the Dive Fest happy hour this evening.
Excellent.
Great. And for those of you who are not sure what you're doing this summer, of course, the Staycation 2016 is on at the Fortune Hotel. You can always call us at 448-5000 for more information on our great packages that we put together just for you. Or you can email me at info@fortunehotel.com. So it's all happening at the Fortune Hotel. You just call us for more information. And, of course, not forgetting to join us on the boardwalk for Fanatic Band Dive Fest happy hour this evening.
All right. Thank you so much, Aisha. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And, of course, we have the Kubuli man there with us in studio. Elvis. Elvis is there, of course, partnering with Fortune Hotel for this grand event tonight from 7 to 12 p.m. Elvis, good afternoon. Welcome to Q.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Dr. Thompson Fountain. It has been a very long time sitting here with a different host.
Yes, indeed. Just hanging on for Matt for the time in. But it's great to have you, Elvis. I heard you earlier on another radio station, and quite a lot going on all across the island.
On a Friday, that's how it is, jumping from station to station, just making sure that the nation is well informed of what's happening with Dominica Brewery and Beverages. And let me just say good afternoon to all the listeners of Q95, of course, for those who sit by the radio side waiting to hear what's happening with Dominica Brewery and Beverages. And we're always here on Talk on the Block.
And it's good to have you. And it's Friday, you're here, and it's Friday, yeah.
And as you just heard from Fort Young, of course, this evening, and Dive Fest is around the place, and we know Dive Fest will climax on the 17th of this month in Soufriere with the Kubuli Canoe race, and it will start tonight, of course, officially with the Fort Young Happy Hour. That's on tonight, and as you heard, that we are partnering with Fort Young. So we're asking persons to come on down and give this support. We know the Fanatic Band is in the house tonight with the Fort Young folks, and we are going down there tonight and have a good time, and to start, of course, the official celebration of Dive Fest. So that's on this month. We'll start today official. They had the launching last night, of course, but the official celebration starts tonight at the Fort Young Hotel, and we will move to different locations like the Sunset Bay. We have the Castle Comfort Lodge, the Anchorage, and we'll move along around the place until we get to the 17th in Soufriere for this big Kubuli Canoe race that will climax Dive Fest. So that's on. Of course, join us tonight if you want to get more on that at the Fort Young Hotel. But there are quite a few other stuff happening this evening, and we want to let persons know of the Latin night happening at the Old School Bar and Grill in Massac. Look out for this one tonight. It's a green and white affair. So we're asking you to come on down in your green and white. There are prizes, of course, for the early birds, of course, the best dress and those type of things. So we are looking forward to seeing you tonight with DJ Snow at the Old School Bar and Grill in Massac. And we're definitely going to have a dance instructor in with us to teach you a little Latin dance, you know what I'm saying? Tonight is the first volume, of course, volume 1 of the Latin dance. We have volume 2 coming up on the 29th. So we want you to come on down tonight, learn a little something, and on the 29th, we will give you a little exercise where you can win some bigger prizes by just showing us what you learn in volume 1. You can practice it in volume 2. So we're asking persons to come on down to the Old School Band Grill tonight in Massac for volume 1 of the Latin night. Big night on in Massac tonight. Latin style. So come and join all our Spanish friends and so on and see how they do the Latin thing. Check us out there. Presidente free for 10 tonight. You can't go wrong. None at all. There's not an entrance fee. No. Just come and enjoy yourself.
Excellent, excellent. Sounds good.
Yeah, this afternoon as well, we have Roslyn on the Portersville Main Road, of course, Goodwill Road, of course, in Portersville. And check out Roslyn for your Kubule free for 10. This and every Friday, we have TGIFL. Thank God it's Friday Lime. And that's happening at the Caromat on Kennedy Avenue, Laplane bus stop, right opposite Why Not. You can't miss that, none at all. If you drive up Kennedy Avenue now, you see the tents and all the branding. You can't miss that, none at all. So you can check us out there for big TGIFL party happening at the Caromat this afternoon. Le Queen, also on the Goodwill Highway. You can check us out at Le Queen. Right, and that's right opposite Najiko. Le Queen, right in the corner. Ian Queen, la Pasamachesa. Opposite Najiko, Le Queen. With our Kubuli DJs as well. Yeah, so check us out. Backstreet Bar in Granford. We have a DJ Flip up there tonight. So Granford Massive, I know you have been waiting for this one. DJ Flip is in the house tonight at the Backstreet Bar. Got for your Kubuli all night long at free for 10. Wet party happening this weekend as well, and that's happening at I&I on Sunday. Sunday, of course, I&I with DJ Epic. For this, we have some stuff happening, of course, before Sunday. That's Saturday, and it's happening on the land entertainment in Palm Grove. And we know the wet party is happening at On the Land in Palm Grove. There's a big, massive pool, of course, on the land where we fill that with foam and water and everything for you to enjoy yourself on the land. Started last week Saturday and will go on every Saturday throughout the summer. So you can check us out on the land for this big one, massive. And tomorrow Saturday as well, big birthday bash, and that's happening at Captain's Bar in Campbell. Big birthday bash on. Captain, happy birthday to you, of course, massive. I know it's your birthday. You're going to be celebrating the entire weekend for your birthday. Happy birthday to you, bro. Definitely, I'll be knocking at Chebisa with you sometimes during the course of the day for your birthday. And tomorrow, of course, we'll continue the celebration. More is happening on Sunday. RC Doctors in Riviera Zurich. The Football League kicks off with a big bolorama and alongside DJ Epic in Riviera Zurich this Sunday. So look out for that. RC Doctors Football League kicks off on Sunday. Big bolorama on Sunday. Big prizes to be won as well. You can check us out there. DJ Epic will give us some entertainment in that one. The Clash of the Cars happening as well in Scotshead. Look out, massive. If you love cars, you love noise, of course you love to see new clean cars, of course you can check us out for the Clash of the Cars in Scotshead. There will be prizes as well to be won. The biggest music, of course, the best music, the cleanest car, the best looking car. You can check us out for this one. Dubla Feast comes up as well this weekend, all weekend long, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. But look out for the Serenade and the Ecstasy Band and Dubla this weekend on Sunday for big action. And also a bike show will take place in Dubla this weekend. So look out for this and a lot more happening around the country.
My goodness, you're basically all over. No village is spared, right?
No
everywhere, Kubli.
And we do that every day. Last night we were in Marigot at the Cool Breeze Bar, and it was massive. Some of us got back home about 4 o'clock this morning. Wow. You know, we were also in Castlebrus at Bernard's Bar, Castlebrus for the first ever 51st day at Bernard's Bar. That was massive as well, and that will continue every first day at Bernard's Bar in Castlebrus. And in Marigot, the throwback first days will continue, of course, started very early this year and is going and growing bigger every first day. And let's not forget reggae on the Broadwalk as well every first day. So we have some massive activities happening all over the place.
Sounds good, Elvis. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Elvis, for coming in and letting us know exactly what is going on throughout the length and breadth of Dominica with Koboli. And it's always good to have you here at Q on a Friday.
Definitely, and I'm thankful for the opportunity as well to be here, and just remind persons that Fort Young and the Die Fest kicks off at Fort Young tonight. Don't forget that at all. Tonight, only $20 get you in, and lots of other parties happening all over the place. The latter night is on. Don't forget that one. The latter night, come learn something. And if you learn something, you're not learning it for Dominica Berry, for Elvis, or for anybody else. You learn that good Latin dance is something you're gonna keep. It's your talent. Come and exercise your right to learn some Latin dance at the old school bar in Massac this evening. But I'll just remind you that when you're going out there, you're traveling the distance, you're coming to Riviera Zurich. Just remember, if you're traveling these distances and you want to have a few drinks, just remember to bring along a designated driver with you. And if you're drinking, partying this weekend, remember to do so in moderation, please.
Excellent. Well, Elvis, thank you so much, and we wish you and your crew from Dominica Breweries a great weekend as you go throughout the length and breadth of this beautiful country.
Thank you very much. So we wish you the same.
All right, thank you. Okay, this was Elvis there with us from Dominica Breweries. It is just about 18 past the hour of 1 o'clock, and we're going to move right on with our talk today. And we have a very important guest with us in studio, a guest I'm sure all Dominicans, I mean every single Dominican, will have an interest in hearing what he has to say. This is a gentleman I'm really thankful he was able to come to the studios on very short notice, since he will not be on island for a couple of weeks. We thought it would be good to have him because I personally have a lot of questions for this gentleman. Let me just introduce him. This is Mr. Craig Nesty. Craig Nesty is the Executive Director of the NTRC, the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission. And Craig, one of the things I've found is that not many people are aware of what the commission is all about and what you guys do. And I'm going to ask you about that. But one of the things I'll be asking you later, and what all Dominicans want to know, is how it is that when you pick up your phone, you have a digiphone and you call line, that the money simply disappears, that you pay so much, the cost is so high. We'll talk about that, but before we come to that, just want to set the pace, let you know what is coming up for you, because that's of great interest to all Dominicans, because some people have to end up having two phones, that's not really convenient, and so on. We'll go into all of that, but before we do, what exactly is the NTRC?
Good afternoon, Dr. Onkin, and thanks for having me here today. Good afternoon to all our listeners, both at home and abroad as well. The NTRC, once again, let me just thank you for giving us the opportunity to be on air, because we have recognized that in the past, the regulatory machinery has a bunch of stakeholders, essentially the governments, the telecom providers, be it Mapping, Lime, Digicel, even the radio operators, Q95, Kyrie FM, the ham radio operators, submarine cable operators, any one that engages in telecommunications as a service provider are one of our stakeholders, as well as the consumers. And we have not, whilst we focus heavily on providing information to the government and regulating the service providers, I don't think we've provided sufficient focus to the consumers. And I think that's one of our mandates moving forward, is to try and basically have greater exposure and more outreach to consumers and be more consumer focused as an entity, as I think they're the most important part of the regulatory framework. They're the most important component, and we actually regulating to ensure that they have a better quality of service, a better quality of experience, and so forth. So the NTRC essentially is just one of the cogs in the wheel of the regulatory machinery. And the regulatory machinery is basically established by a treaty sometime in 2000, where 5 island states, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, St. Kitts, basically recognized that regulation is important, but it's very expensive. So they decided to pool their resources together and formed an entity called ECTEL, which basically is sort of the administrative body. And on each of the islands that I mentioned previously, there's a national entity called the National Telecoms Regulatory Commission, which sort of implements the regional framework. So we have a harmonized regulatory framework throughout the islands. Most of the engineering, the legal, economic decision makings and policy implementations get crafted at ECTEL, and it's up to the NTRCs in each of these different islands to implement them in the various jurisdictions.
So ECTEL basically came up after the dismantling of the monopoly of Ken Wireless, or was that after or before?
It actually came up to dismantle it.
Okay.
So it was formed to liberalize the market.
All right. So the idea at the time was that the markets would be opened up and there would be competition and the consumer would benefit.
That's right.
Are you satisfied that that has happened to any degree? Are we really better off today in terms of what the consumer sees compared to what happened in
we are better
2000?
We are better off today than we were in 2000. I mean, the consumer has choice. Prices have come down significantly. If you remember what mobile rates were when Lime was the only player in town with TDMA versus what we have now with GSM networks, is a considerable drop. But we're not satisfied when we benchmark the region against other jurisdictions that we have attained the level of benefits to the consumers that regulation should have brought.
Now, does your commission regulate any of the rates that are charged? Do you have any say in terms of how much Lime charges the consumer?
Well, it's two things. There's some services that are monopolistic, like fixed line, for example, where you'd have something where you deem a provider a dominant provider, so they have market power. These providers, you would put certain mechanisms on them to restrict their ability to gouge the consumer. So you have like price cap plans and certain other measures that would sort of give the operator some room to maneuver, but within a basket of services, the prices cannot exceed a certain amount, and these price caps would be adjusted based on other economic metrics, basically. So, but this is really done on the retail side for a dominant provider, someone who has significant market power, who's like probably someone who can really influence the price of commodities in the market without the consumer having the necessary choices to make a difference and so forth. So the commission and ECTEL decide that Lime fixed line is a service that would require that sort of intervention. The mobile rates which you talk about, mobile has been deemed to be a competitive market. So essentially, you have more than one player in the game. They're not colluding or working with each other in any way, and they're basically striving to capture as much market share as possible. So in cases like this, the regulator really does not get into the retail side. What we've done, though, is we've gotten into the wholesale side of mobile, where we've regulated the interconnection rates between Digicel and Lime.
Yes. That was my next question to you. Interconnection. Take your time and explain that to the public and exactly what that means in layman terms. What do we talk about interconnection between Lime and Digicel?
Okay. To make Lime basically has a cellular network, and that cellular network would comprise of equipment, and customers would be utilizing the services of that network. The customers are basically Lime customers, and they can call within that network, and Lime controls all of the costs associated with calls within that network. Then Digicel would have a similar thing on island, and they'd control all the costs within their network. If a Digicel customer wants to call a Lime customer, that call has to what we call terminate on Lime's network. Now, Digicel does not control the cost of that termination charge. So if Lime says we're going to charge Digicel 30 cents to terminate a call on their network, then Digicel needs to make a profit off of that call. So they'd have to have a markup on that call. So that call will invariably be more than 30 cents, right?
Okay, so basically what you're saying that as a Digi customer calling a Lime customer, because you're basically using the Lime's line.
Right.
As a GD customer, you have to pay Lime. Digicel has to pay Lime for that service.
That's right.
Okay, so it will be something over and above the cost of whatever Digi would charge you as a customer. Because it's whatever they would charge you for using their service, Digi service,
Right.
plus
Right.
the amount you are charged, okay?
Right. Yes. So that's essentially it. So Digicel would have to cover their cost that they've paid to Lime, plus the cost to you as the consumer, plus their markup for their profits, and that would be your retail price.
So why is that so high? Because you put $20, $25 on your phone, you make one call to if you have a GD phone to a Lime customer, and when you check your balance, you're down to 43 cents after a few minutes. Why is that so high? Are you telling me that the cost of interconnection is what is driving this?
The cost of interconnection is driving it, but why it's so high is because, if you remember what I said before about a monopoly, right? Once you have a monopoly in the market, people charge monopolistic prices, right? So they're really not driven by competition. And what the literature is showing is that terminating a call on your network is a monopolistic service. So as you say that, because only you can determine the cost of terminating a call on your network, right? So that sort of given us the opportunity to regulate the termination rates.
Right, so I'm thinking, because as regulators, you should be able to say, well, hey, wait a minute, what you're charging is too high.
Right.
It has no reference to the actual cost to you.
Right.
Right?
So what was done prior was a model was developed called a long-run incremental cost model, LYRIC model. And that model basically was developed to determine what those rates should have been, right? And the rates were actually dropped. And they were dropped in a way that would, can't remember the term right now, but it was a phased approach. So it would move from, like, say, 30 cents to 20 cents to 15 cents. So whatever the model indicated that those rates should have been. And the model basically was what you call a scorched earth model, where they decided what an efficient operator would do in the country, as opposed to what Lime is doing and DG is doing, and figure out what his cost would be, and then told Lime and DG, well, these are the costs that you have to charge each other. Now, what happened was, these rates were implemented. These costs are being charged between the providers, but the corresponding effect on the retail side,
we are not yet seeing the impact.
The consumers have not seen the impact.
But shouldn't the regulation step in and insist that this savings be passed on to the consumer as a regulator? Because it seems to me that the reason why you would do that is to give an added benefit to the consumer to benefit, but the benefits are not being given to the consumer at this point. Why not step in as a regulator and demand that it's done?
And regulate the retail side.
Yes.
Right. Well, that has some implications as well, because you want to encourage investment into the country. The providers want to get a return on their investment, a fair return on their investment. So they would have an understanding as to volume of traffic, level of calls, and so forth, and how much they will need to charge to recoup that investment. And a regulator steps in and says, well, you can only charge 5 cents for a call, and they start running into financial difficulties, then you're really not helping anything, because you're actually making it more difficult for them to turn a profit and making it more harmful on the consumer.
Yes, but I would assume as a regulator you would be reasonable, right? Because
right.
You would want to go into the interests of both the businesses and the consumers. Right. So the premise that you remember that we're starting on is that the mobile service is a competitive market, and what the regulator really wants to do is regulate himself out of business. So the regulator doesn't really want to be there. The regulator wants to promote competition in the market, have healthy competition in the market, so that the regulator is not necessarily needed anymore.
So it's kind of counterintuitive if we say we have competition, but then the competition is not necessarily robust competition, and we still need to step in. Now, there are some people now who are thinking, well, it is competition, but it's a sort of like a tacit duopoly. So it's Lime and DG, and they're now really happy with the level of earnings they get in the market, and they're not really competing aggressively. You know, if you ask Lime or DJ, they'll tell you, man, we're competing as hard as we can. We have promotions every day. You know what I mean? And they'll tell you Dominica is a really, really tough market. You know, and if you compare the revenues in Dominica versus the revenues in the other OECS islands, you'll see, I mean, they're making some sense. Dominica is a really difficult market.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult as an economist because it seems to me that the pricing is wrong, because when you charge those kind of high prices, obviously people shy away, and it seems to me you can do just as well on volume if you have lower price and you get volume, because in other words, I'd be more willing to pick up my phone, right, and call.
Before you go on, when you charge a high price, we have to be very critical as to what prices we're talking about, because from our analysis, the on-net pricing is very, very low. Like sometimes you can get on-net to on-net call-ins based on the bundles and all the promotions they offer as low as 1 cent a minute, right? Whereas the off-net call-in is significantly a problem, right? I'll give you that. So when we talk about, so the strategy for them, both of them, is probably to grow their network, because they'd probably be happy if they were the only game in town and you were calling on-net alone, right? And you'd see those benefits. So on the one hand, you can see by raising the barriers to call across network, they're trying to gather as many people as possible on their network, because the value of the network really revolves around the number of consumers they have. So we have to be careful when we say the prices are high. We really discern what prices
we're talking about. Okay, let's take a call for Mr. Craig Nesty, who is the Executive Director of the NTRC. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Brother Thompson.
Yes, good afternoon.
And good afternoon to your guest.
Thank you.
When it comes to accounting, economics, and those things, I am zero. The only economics that I know is when I used to get one wing in my plate and now reduced to piece. I know things are bad. That's the only economics I know. But if I am to understand what the gentleman said, it appeared to me that there is no need for regulators. Because if you have the regulators who is to regulate the fees and the cost of service, and when the regulator regulates, then the gentleman is saying they cannot pass the profit to the consumer because they have to look after their, words to the effect, their own interests, so to speak. So to me, in a sense, it's like I giving a person to go to the shop and buy me some groceries, and the shopkeeper sells him the groceries at a cheaper rate. And instead of bringing back the change to me, he pockets the change. That's what I see. So the regulator regulates the market in the interest of the service, that the consumer could get a reasonable business, but at the same time the business place is holding, whatever he was supposed to pass. So in other words, he's holding it, the profit at the expense of the consumer. I would like a little more clarification on that, Mr. Thompson, if I understand him clearly.
Yes, Craig. I think the point is making, why not pass it on? Why not as a regulator insist that it's passed on? I think that's a question the caller wants answered.
Why not as a regulator insist? Okay, first of all, the impact of reducing the interconnection rates is one of the elements in the cost of a retail service, right? So if the rates go down by 10 cents for the wholesale price for interconnection, doesn't necessarily mean the retail price will go down by a corresponding 10 cents, because a lot of other costs have not changed, right, which are also involved in terminating that call. So, but the idea was there should have been a reduction. It is probably similar to the ECCB saying the interest rates for savings should go down by 1%, which 43%, and then you expect loans to come down correspondingly.
Right.
And what you have to understand is the regulator is on one side of the spectrum, trying to protect the interests of the consumer and trying to do things to benefit the consumer. The providers are on the other side of the spectrum, trying to make as much profit as possible and satisfy their shareholders and their investors. So it's a pull and a tug, right? So we've tried this one approach. We are expecting it to come down. We've assessed the level of reductions in rates in the market. We've realized that the interconnection rates did not move as much as we want. In fact, it didn't move very negligibly. So then the next step is, well, what do we do next? It's not like, okay, we just throw our hands up and give up. You know what I mean? But the measures we implement have to be reasonable. They have to be evidence-based. They have to be founded on some sort of principle. So I can't just come tomorrow and say, you know, the interconnection rate should be 10 cents. You know what I mean? Because consumers are suffering. When they can show you invariably, well, the cost to really do this is 25 cents, right? And part of the model that ECTEL has been developed, the model basically showed that the interconnection rates was 30 cents or 35 cents, right? Now, this has gone on for the last 3 years. We've recognized the limitations in that. Currently, we're now looking at a new model, right, to regulate retail rates. Now, that is being done in the ECTEL jurisdiction and a few other jurisdictions in the world. It's not something that's done in other jurisdictions as a norm. So this will be an approach that's not a typical approach to a competitive market, right? And one of the things you might have to show is that, well, the market is not as competitive as you would have liked it to be.
You know, Craig, but at the termination point, as you indicated, it becomes a monopoly, right?
Yeah, that's what's
at the point, right? It becomes a monopoly. So why not do, for example, like they do with electricity, where before you impose a price on the consumer, you have to go to the regulators to get approval. Why not have the commission approve those rates? Because they're essentially a monopoly at the point where they terminate those calls.
Right, but you see, if I'm probably not being as clear as I can be, the termination rates are the rates we regulate, are the rates that we've set based on what the model has indicated they should be.
Right? But yes.
But so how much the guy charges on top of that is a retail rate, right? So that is really a commercial decision based on other factors. How much is his cost of capital? How much he has to pay shareholders? How much he has to pay salaries? So how much, because he has to make a return on that investment as well. You know, so what I'm saying is that's one measure we've put in. It did not have the desired effect. We understand the consumers are still not in the best position they'd like to be, and we are looking at other measures to basically bring the cost down. One of the things we're actually working very effectively on right now is something called number portability. Now, what number portability brings to the table is the ability for you with a DigiPhone number to move your number to Lime and still keep your Digi number. Now, most people might think, well, you know, I don't really want to move to Lime. I don't really want to keep my number and so forth. But what the literature is also showing is in countries where that ability exists, right? Now that you have people on Lime with Digi numbers and people on Digi with Lime numbers, well, when you dial that number, you're not sure whether you dial a Lime customer or a Digi customer. So that dynamic basically causes the providers to bring the interconnection rates down themselves and bring the retail rates of calling cross network down correspondingly because of the uncertainties that the consumers face and trying to maintain the quality of service and the happiness of the consumers in the market. So number portability is another tool that the regulator has, and that should be implemented by the end of this year. So
okay. That's what basically is done in the United States, so that, you know, if you have a Sprint phone, you can call AT&T at the same rate.
Right.
All right. So that is coming to us in Dominica.
It's coming to you before the end of the year.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Because I think Dominica is really looking for some relief particularly I think with regards to those interconnected rates. I think that's where it is really high. Let us extend the conversation a little bit with regards to the internet. Okay, yes. and the speeds that have been given to the Dominican public. For example, you pay in some cases for 3 megs of download speed, and then you end up getting 1 meg. It barely goes above 1 meg. I mean, to download. I was trying to download a file a couple of days ago. It took me almost 8 hours. A file that would normally take about 1 hour, but it is so slow. What is being done for the consumer with regards to the download speeds?
Okay, I'm getting some feedback. Download broadband. Broadband is right now is a very competitive market, right? So that's what the regulator wants, right? In Dominica, we're one of the few countries where we actually have free internet service providers. We have Lime, we have DigiPlay, and we have Mapping, right? In other jurisdictions, all they have is Flow, right? So they have one company basically setting the rates, and you have no choice in the market. So Dominica is very unique in terms of that. In terms of the quality of service regulations, right? We've just been analyzing a new set of regulations. We had a public consultation where we invited a number of stakeholders to the Gallery Hotel. We had about 50 or so people show up from various different industries, from anybody associated with technology that we could find on the list. They were there. And they got a sense to get an appreciation of what the new quality of service regulations are, and what sort of measures would be in place for the consumer to demand better quality of service. The problem we have, or we've seen in the past, is whilst the consumers are affected, most of the consumers that are affected, they go to the service provider and they complain, and if they don't get the desired redress, they basically feel helpless, right? And over the last 6 years since I've been at the NTRC, I've seen very few Dominicans actually file a formal complaint with the NTRC about any quality of service issue. And I think that's a failing on the NTRC's part in terms of not having the necessary outreach, the necessary campaigns to let in the local public know that there is an avenue for resolution. So if you're paying for 3 megs and you get in 1 meg, the problem is not your computer, lack of memory, the problem is not anything associated with you, but it has something to do with the back end, then there has to be redress for you. And you should be able to go to an entity and say, well, listen, I've been telling Lime this for the last month, and the way the regulations are worded right now, you have to show that you tried in good faith to resolve the issue with your provider for at least 30 days. And that has been written in law, so I can't change that. But once you can show that you have tried that for 30 days to resolve this, and they have not solved the problem, you can file an official dispute with the NTRC. Now, the NTRC has received official disputes. Most of them have been from expats, people who've come from other jurisdictions and recognize that, well, this cannot be happening. There has to be a process to solve this situation, and it cannot be just calling the rate. There has to be some targeted way that I can file a complaint and get something resolved, right? And we basically sat as a tribunal in one instance as the NTRC, and made a binding ruling on a case where the provider basically had to comply by law. So there are opportunities for the Dominican public to solve their problems with their providers. If they can show the NTRC that they've tried to solve it with the provider initially in good faith for 30 days, then we can step in. Broadband, though, is a very technical problem. You'd have to collect a lot of your speed tests. You have to show evidence of what's going on. You can't just come and say, my internet is bad. Or like you said, I tried to download a file and it took you 10 hours for a file I normally charge. Well, when that's happening, the first thing I check you, tell you to do, well, is say, on June 8th, whatever, I did a speed test at 3 o'clock. These are the speed test results. You did it again at 4 o'clock. These were the speed test results. You did it again at 8 o'clock. These were the speed test results. I'm paying for 3 megabits of download speed. Speed test results is showing that I'm only getting 1 megabit. It's consistently at 1 megabit. I can show you this from Monday to Friday for the last 3 days. I've written to Lime, or I've spoken to Lime. I've done this for 40 days trying to resolve this, and they have not solved this, and that's a very easy case for the NTRC. So you do now come, file a dispute with the NTRC first to act on. But you come to me and tell me my speed is not what it's supposed to be. Right? I mean, we really need the evidence.
Okay. All right. Let's take this other caller. Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon to Mr. Fountain and your guest.
Yes, good afternoon.
The exact question you raised, Mr. Fountain, about slow speed and so, and the exact response the man gave. I remember when it used to be just that. I collected a whole heap of speed tests. I printed them out. After going to SAT a million times, I went to the NTRC. The NTRC took my information and they put me in the line of fire. The NTRC gave me a form to take back to SAT, asked them to sign it and send it back to them. When I went to SAT, SAT told me, "What is that? We don't know anything about that. We don't have to fool that." And that died right there.
Mr. Nesty?
Well, I'm not.
Are you familiar with that case?
No, I'm not. But I want to point out that.
But is that your procedure normally to send the individual back to the provider?
No, the way it's supposed to work is the provider supposed to provide you with the form to file an official dispute, right? So you file that official dispute with the provider. The provider needs now to see that that dispute has been filed. You can bring a copy of that dispute to the NTRC, right? The provider also submits all the disputes that have been filed with them every month to the NTRC. So I'm not sure about what entailed with this gentleman, but if we had a copy of his dispute, it would not have just died there.
So the form you were given, was that form given to you by the NTRC to take back to SAT? Are you still there? Okay, I think he left us. But the procedure is okay. So what should have happened is he comes to you with that complaint. You send him back for a form from SAT, or you give him that form that he then fills out and takes to SAT, or to whichever.
If he comes to us with a complaint, he would have had to file a dispute with the provider.
So where does he get the form to file that official dispute?
The provider should have the law says that the provider has to make the form available to you.
So if he goes to the provider and say, I know nothing about that,
well, all he has to do is call the NTRC,
Okay.
Because there's no way a provider in Dominica regulated by the NTRC can say they know nothing about this form, because they've all been part of the consultation process. They've all reviewed the legislation. They all know the procedure. So I find that really disheartening. And I'm very sorry that gentleman went through that situation, and it sounds tedious. But if he just made a phone call to me, because I've basically went to providers with customers to get them to fill out forms.
Okay.
So I'm really disheartened by that situation.
Okay, so the caller should probably just try that again. All right, let's take this caller. Good afternoon, caller.
Yes, good afternoon, Thompson Fountain, and good afternoon to your guests in studio.
Yeah, good afternoon.
To the Nature Island. I'm listening to the gentleman in studio with you. It's very important that he's there to explain to the people what's going on, because a lot of times the people are not aware of these things are going on. They're being ripped off. And the other thing also, they don't have the know-how to check and see whether they've been ripped off or not. This is where the government's supposed to have the agency to check on that for them. And I'll give, for example, I live in the United States, and you know, Mr. Thompson Fountain, at the fuel pump, people can't check whether the companies are cheating the people, but the government have agencies that are going and will be checking the pumps, whether or not they're cheating the people, and they're not going to tell them when they're coming and check their pump, if they're price gouging or ripping off the people. So I think the government should have an agency to check that, because a lot of rip-off is going. That's why the United States have the price what's going on, because there's a lot of competition. And the Nature Island, because there's not much competition, companies are taking advantage on the individual down there. So we need individuals to get on top of those guys, to get their act together. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Let's take a few more calls and then you can respond. We quickly running out of time. Good afternoon.
Yes, Mr. Fountain, it's me again.
Yes.
You asked, or the gentleman asked, if the form was given to me by the NTRC. Yes. In the office, upstairs where all the world used to be.
So you filled that form and took it back to
That is
the
exactly what I'm saying. They asked me to take it to SAT.
right. And what happened when you got to SAT?
In my opinion, I am not the one who was supposed to do that. I bring my information, the NTRC should start working. But they put me in the line of fire.
So a question to you then: why is it important?
Huh?
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Ness is asking for your name so that he can follow up with you. Can you give him your?
He wants my name?
Yes, so he can follow up with your case.
I will drop to the office. I will come back to the office.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, okay, thanks. Thank you, caller. So,
Nonsense we have here.
thank you very much, caller. So, Mr. Nestle, the question then for you is why that intermediate? As the caller says, he's done everything that he had to do all the downloads, everything. He brings the complaint. Why not at that point you take over and communicate directly with the service provider? Well, why do you have to include him again and he can go back and they can knock him around?
Well, if I recall the regulations properly, right? And there's actually new dispute regulations being proposed right now, which as the public, and that's something that we should talk about just before we end, about consultations and public consultations. The laws will develop before me, right? So essentially, we're a creature of statute, we must comply with the laws. And the laws basically prescribe how a consumer is to file a complaint and how the NTRC should address that complaint. And the complaints have to be basically filed through the provider. The provider gives out the form. Now, I cannot just decide to change the law unilaterally, you know what I mean? So if there are definite hiccups with that process, then I think we need to basically evaluate that and look at how we can incorporate any modifications to that in the new pieces of regulations that are coming out to deal with dispute resolutions. With respect to the caller before who talked about monitoring fuel pumps and so forth, the NTRC is a young organization, and I mean, if I have to compare it with something like the FCC in the United States, we're talking about hundreds and thousands of employees with all kinds of resources, all kinds of money and equipment at the disposal. The NTRC has about 8 staff, right? So obviously, the measures and the techniques we use to resolve issues and disputes and stuff will be different than a first world country. So there is really, I mean, it's little point to compare the two, but we do have to try to strive for best practices, and we'll try to do it within the context of the limited resources that we have.
Excellent. Okay, let's move quickly to the whole radio question. There are times I've heard people call the radio station and say, I'm listening to Q95 and it appears that another station, possibly Kyrie, is encroaching on my signal. Do you get a lot of those complaints?
Well, the NTRC is mandated to regulate spectrum. So it has to do with the transmission of information over the ethos through the airwaves and whatnot. So on occasion, we do have situations where one radio provider would be encroaching on another provider. We do go out and investigate these claims. Up to yesterday, our engineers were up at Mount Espana investigating and confirming a similar type of claim. And we do basically present our results and our findings to the operators who more often than not comply with the recommendations we make to reduce what we call harmful frequency interference. And the causing of harmful frequency interference is an illegal act under the Telecoms Act. So if any provider, any consumer recognizes that illegal act is taking place, they can inform the NTRC and we'll come out to investigate that, and we will move to having it redressed as quickly as
So as an illegal act, can they be fined and brought before the court for doing that?
I would have to look at the penalties under the Telecommunications Act and what they are. But most of the times when there's harmful frequency interference, there's a provision to give the person causing the harmful frequency interference an opportunity to correct it before fining.
Okay.
The implementation of fines and the likes basically comes about when we have so it becomes an indictable offense. So there has to be a court procedure.
Yeah. Okay.
And for expediency, we try to get things done before trying to
go that route. Okay. Good afternoon, caller. Thanks for your patience.
Good afternoon, Dr. Fontaine, and good afternoon to you, Mr. Nesty. Yeah, Wice is dealing with that interference from radio signals. We also have a situation of telephone interference lately there. Sometimes I'm on my phone and I'm getting so much other conversations crossing my line. Even when I'm talking to somebody on the phone, and sometimes I'm calling the radio station and I'm getting this interference that comes across my communication. Can the NTRC do anything about these problems like this?
Okay, just before you answer, let's take this call, all right? Keep this. Good afternoon, caller.
To your guests, to you, Fontaine, and the listening public, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We all know that all utility companies rip off their customers. Thank you, sir, for clarifying it better. Have a blessed day.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Right. In terms of the ripping off, we definitely, well, the measures that we're trying to put in place right now to ensure that we protect the consumer is we're actually looking at a new lyric model to identify what an efficient provider should be providing the service at to Dominicans, and forcing the providers here to drop their rates to that level. The other guy who spoke about the telephone interference is sad that he's not on the call anymore, because there's a lot of issues here. Is it that it's a mobile phone call? Because
yes, he did indicate that. Yeah, when he's calling, it's a mobile call, and he gets.
I didn't hear him say it was a mobile call.
But I'm guessing it's a mobile call.
I didn't say it was a call, right? because it could, because that in itself sounds very difficult to happen based on the codex used between the phones and the towers.
So it's easier to happen if it's a fixed line.
Well, if it's a fixed line, and then we might have some cross talk happening due to weather conditions and the old copper cables that we have running under the ground and so forth. That might be more likely to happen. I would need a little more clarity from him.
Okay, let's see if it's him on the line there.
Yeah, that's me again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually, I talking about most of all the landlines.
Yeah.
Because when I'm using my landlines to call the radio station, I get interference. I'm hearing it happening to quite a few people that also calling the radio stations. You're hearing all this interference coming across. Angelo actually has a clipping that he plays with a young lady singing, and you're hearing the interference coming through that particular clipping. So it is something that we experience a lot on the landline. From my perspective, is on the landline.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Craig, before you respond, let's just take these two calls so you can wrap into your response. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I am from Portsmouth, and it's months now I cannot get Q95 on the television. It's just blank. I used to get Carry FM in the bottom, in the background. Now it's just blank. For months now. You do hear Carry FM in the background, but months now I can't get it. So I don't know what to do.
So on the channel for Q, you hear Kyrie?
Yes.
Okay. We'll see if...
months now it's going on.
Okay. We'll see if Mr. Nestle, it's a pity everybody's calling now that we almost out of time. So let's take this final caller, and then we'll have Mr. Nestle respond. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nestle.
Good afternoon.
There was a time when your service get disconnected. Your provider is to charge you a reconnection fee and physically send somebody to reconnect you. Now, with the technology that they have, they reconnect me right at the office with a button, and they're still charging you high reconnection.
Same. Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. Let's see. I'm going to give you an extra minute. Let's take this final caller here. Good afternoon, caller. Make it brief, please.
Me again. About the radio station and the frequency. I think they should look at it very closely, because, for instance, maybe like on a Saturday or Sunday where nothing much importance is being said, all stations are balanced. But when on the times that important conversation, debates going on, you find another station is covering the other one. I think it's been done deliberately, and they should really investigate that, because
the question is where do you find that? Is that over the television or the radio?
Well, I mean, I'm from overseas, but I always hear the people talk about sometimes the radio or sometimes the television.
Television. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. So let's see, quick response, because we have to shut it down.
Okay.
You're going to have to come back because all the lines are going. There are lots of questions and concerns that people have.
And I think it's useful for the NTRC to make itself available to the public. And I'm really encouraged by the kind of responses we get in, and we definitely would like to be more engaged with the public. Yeah. In terms of the interference with the crosstalk on the phones, with the copper lines running through the ground. That phenomenon, we find that happening when there's a lot of copper lines being used for telephone calls collected in the same bundle, going to the same switch that may be wet due to a lot of rains and whatnot. So that phenomenon, I knew it as existing when I used to be an engineer at Line, and it may be still existing. The problem with that is the copper infrastructure. Very few telecoms operators are looking to invest in fixed line technology moving forward. So we'll have to look at that in more detail as to how we can resolve that situation. The reconnection fee, that's a very, very good point. I'll definitely take that on board and see if the reconnection fees are way beyond the desired level of cost to recoup the costs associated with the fees. I just wanted to put one caveat out there to everybody, because we might not touch everything. We do have a website, www.ntrc.org. So just Google NTRC Dominica and that website should come up. We also have a Facebook page that I'd encourage everybody to go on and just post their issues, post their questions, post their problems, and that is how the regulators get knowledge of what's going on in the market. Just go to that webpage and just let us know how you feel. And we had a situation where I came on a radio station about 4 months ago, and I encouraged someone to do that. They did do that, and now we're actually doing a customer service survey in the Trafalgar area to determine the quality of broadband, whether broadband speeds are what they say they are getting. And we're doing a whole community survey. We have young people basically going out for that entire community, asking everybody about the broadband service. And we encourage you all to participate on that, because once we collect that data, we can now force the providers to provide the service at the levels that would benefit the consumers. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. We're sadly out of time, but we will have you back because, as you said, a lot of concerns. Let me thank all of you for listening. This is Q95, and have a good afternoon. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.